All right, everybody, welcome back to the Birmingham Real Estate Investor. We are glad you're here. I am one of your hosts, Spencer Sutton. My co-host is Matthew Whitaker. And today we have an old real estate friend of ours. Not old, not Bruce, not that you're old.
Not his age. We're just saying how long we've known you, Bruce.
We've known you for a long time,
That's
Bruce.
okay. Everybody says I'm old, so I can handle it.
Listen, no, that's not the case. But Bruce is a kind of a local legend here in Birmingham. He's done a lot, and so we're going to get into that. But some of the highlights that I'm sitting here thinking of, Bruce, you have you've been an appraiser here in the Birmingham area for many, many years. You have a very successful flipping business, innovative renovations, where you're buying and rehabbing and selling houses.
Yep.
And then you most recently just launched kind of a soft launch, but it's probably by the time we have this podcast out, a coaching program called Flipping Bruce.
Correct.
And that came along with your very first book, which is First Flip. So Bruce, you've been busy, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it has been kind of a crazy year, but a good year. Very good. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Spencer put it on me to ask the first question, but after that intro, I don't even know where to go. My mind's going in a million different directions. But I think the best thing to do, Bruce, would be to tell us how you guys got started in the real estate business.
Sure. Well, I am old, and it has been a long time, but actually, and I moved down from the north down here in Birmingham about early 1970s, just finished high school. And I went to work for a company just out of high school, just doing maintenance and painting and doing rehab work on apartments. And, I kind of got my hands dirty and was just doing a lot of the actual work. And that just kind of got me just liking real estate from the very beginning. But after that, I moved up to Denver, Colorado I think I was up there for 7 years. And that's actually where I did my first flip. I'd done some work for a friend, and she had the opportunity to buy a 4-unit building. And she wanted to know if she'd go in with me, and I do all the work and she would fund the project. And so that was like 1985. And I've been hooked ever since. I mean, that really got me I just love real estate. So from there, I ended up moving back to Birmingham about 1990, and that's when I started training as a real estate appraiser, and got my license in about 93 or 94 or something like that. So I've been doing appraising for close to 30 years. And, with having that background, I never lost touch of looking for houses, so I started picking up a house here and there, but mainly just doing it on my own. And it was just a few, one a year, one every couple of years. It wasn't much, but then I guess, the mid 90s, late 90s, it just started ramping up, and it just seemed like more opportunities came to buy and everything. And then I don't know what time, when did you guys get into, because I started buying a bunch of houses from you guys.
Yeah, so we got to know each other. We bought a HomeVestor franchise here in Birmingham, which is the We Buy Ugly Houses people. And so I started my wholesaling in December of 2003. I quit my job. I had a partner doing it. I quit my job in April, I think, of 2004. So that's probably around in 2004 might have been the first time we met. And then Matthew jumped into the wholesaling business shortly after that.
Yeah, I was 05. So we did sell you a bunch of houses back then.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember. I mean, we got some good deals. That was when you guys were kind of the, I don't want to say the only wholesalers, but basically, the wholesalers around town. So we did a lot of deals, and that's kind of in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, started ramping up. And when you guys came on, we bought a lot, and we were doing I don't know how many, probably 8 or 10 a year at that point. But we were also buying houses and keeping rental properties, because we had about, I think before everything hit in 2007-8, we had about 16 rental houses too. And then, then everything hit.
Then it was pandemonium. So talk about some of the mistakes that you feel like you've made and learned from them, and things, Spencer and I have a laundry list of things we wish we had done better, faster. Tell us a few of your kind of things you've learned over the years of investing.
Well, I'll tell you, the 2007, 2008, 9 era, I learned a lot. I mean, and it, it was horrible, and I don't ever want to go through it again, but a lot of ways is a blessing. I mean, there were so many things. I don't have rentals now, but I'm going to get back into rentals, and I've been looking at them to do it again. But I'm going to do it totally different. I mean, in theory, the way I was doing it, we were buying stuff and we were kind of doing what everybody calls the BRRR now, you know, but I mean, that's how it worked back then. You just buy something, renovate it, refinance it, and then do another one, you know, and that's just how we did it. But what I did, I was putting 15-year notes on all the properties, and what I thought was cash flow, they weren't cash flowing. I mean, you know, $150 a month is not cash flowing, you know, I mean, it just, you know,
not with Birmingham rentals.
No, it just doesn't. But, you know, we were doing so many flips, and then I had my appraisal business. And so everything was, you know, we had plenty of money on this side. So I didn't even think, I wasn't worried. I was just trying to get that stuff paid for. That was going to be my retirement. So that was a big mistake. I mean, you know, I'm a lot more conservative with what I want as far as cash flows with stuff. And I probably wouldn't do 15 unless I could the numbers were really good and I got a steal or something. I probably wouldn't do 15. You can always pay more on something and do a 30-year, you know, and if you've got the extra cash. But, you know, you just never thought that things were going to change that much or turn that much. So, you know, the other thing, I mean, you know, I lived like a lot of people. I was, you know, had new cars. I had high credit card debts, was doing, you know, we were just living the good life and just not thinking it could change. You know, well, now I don't have any debt. I have my house, you know, and that's it. I mean, credit cards get paid off every month. You know, it's just a lot different, but I sleep real well. I don't worry about, you know, because I honestly, anybody that's went through all that period does not want to go through it again, you know, and so you're going to make some adjustments. So those are a couple of the big things, you know, and then, you know, also I see so many people buying things and paying just so much money for them. And it's tempting to buy stuff because you don't have a project going or you want another rental. But if the numbers just don't work, you know, don't try to force something and make it work because it's going to catch up with you one of those times in the long run, you know.
Yeah, I'm reading a book called Poor Charlie's Almanac, and I've read it a number of times, and that's one of their big he is Warren Buffett's partner. And that's one of the things they say is, you know, there's nothing wrong with sitting on the sidelines with a bunch of cash and waiting on the right opportunity. Don't buy a deal just because you need something to do. That's not a wise decision.
And I think I probably did that back in those days. I was buying whatever houses I could look at. I mean, we would make offers. If they took them, we'd buy them. And then a poor strategy was if I couldn't wholesale it out to somebody like you, Bruce, because everybody looked at it and said, no, I don't want it, I just stick it in a rental portfolio. And that's not a good way to build your rental portfolio either.
Yeah, with all the duds.
Yeah, the market is telling you something. We don't want this house.
Nobody else wants it. I guess I'll keep it for a long time.
Oh, it's got to be a great house. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. I know exactly. So, yeah.
So you got hit hard with the recession 07. We all did. Like the three of us who were sitting here talking today felt the pain. It was like got punched in the stomach. Yeah. So tell me, how did you, because now you have a successful real estate career, how did you come back from such a blow like 07, 08?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll be honest, for a few years, I didn't come back. My appraisal business, I lost just about 80% of my appraisal business on top of all the flipping and the rentals and everything else was gone. I mean, I held on, I had some savings and, you know, I thought I was going to be able to make it, but it took so long to come back. I ended up filing bankruptcy in about 2011 or 12. I mean, I couldn't make it. And so, you know, I was kind of, I'll be honest, I was almost angry. You know, the banks, when I saw it was all coming in, I called every lender we had, you know, all the houses and said, listen, this is what's headed, you know, and what can we do? And nobody would talk to me. They said, hey, you got great credit. You've never made a late payment, you know, and I'm like, I understand that, but that's why I'm calling you now because it's coming. And nobody worked, you know, some of the banks that we had these lines of credit, you know, it was like, I get a call and I didn't even know what, you know, calling a line in was, you know, I mean, it was, you know, I'd never heard
unheard of back in the day. Right.
Exactly. And, you know, one of the bankers called me and said, Bruce, we're going to have to call that line in. And I'm like, what is, I don't even know what that is, you know? And he's like, well, you got to pay it off, you know? And it was like 300,000. And I said, when? He said 30 days, you know? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, you know? And so anyhow, I for a couple of years, I just didn't even want to do anything. I was just like, I mean, I worked with my appraisals, did what I could to get by, but it just, you know, then I saw some old friends, you know, buying some stuff up, and I'm like, you know, there's some opportunities out there, and so, you know, I got back, but I didn't, you know, I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of debt, you know, so I paid cash for everything for a few years. I mean, I didn't even worry about my credit. My credit scores were low, and I just didn't even try. I was like, I don't care about all that. And then after a couple of years, I'm like, okay, I got to get back in the game and start working on credit, and started, you know, got a line of credit and did this and that, and met people to partner with and do all that. So, but then it took a couple of years, and then for maybe the first 3 or 4 years, I would just do maybe 3 or 4 a year flips, because I was working, my appraisal business was coming back, and we were doing a lot more work there. So I had a good income there, but just enough to keep things going, maybe one house at a time, you know, if I did 3 a year. And then, I don't know, about 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to see about ramping it up, you know, and just picking things up. So I just made a concerted effort to try to get to 10 or 12 a year. And so I just sat down and, what do I need to do? You know, how do I need to get to 12? What financing do I need? I need X amount of dollars more. I need, you know, more contacts. I need more, you know, leads to get houses, whatever it might be. And just sat down. And then within about, you know, 6 to 12 months, last couple of years, I've done 10 or 12 a year, and still working, you know, I still work 40 or 50 hours a week with my appraisal business. So.
And when you say 10 to 12 a year, are these home flips?
Yeah, flips. Yeah, single family house flips. Right. Mm-hmm.
So what do you look for when you're looking to buy a home deal like that to flip?
Yeah, you know, typically the worse condition, the better for me. And the better ones are that if they're so bad they can't get financing, because then I don't have competition with somebody that wants to live in a neighborhood. You know, I mean, I look at a lot of stuff in Hoover, and I looked at one last year that it was really dated, but it could get conventional financing. Well, they ran up the price like 50,000 over what I could pay for it, you know, because it was a owner occupant could live in there. So the first thing is, the worse condition, the better, you know, that's kind of what I look for. The good thing about being an appraiser, I know all over Birmingham. I mean, I flip, you know, it's, you know, 20 miles north, 20 miles south, east, west. I go everywhere, because I know there's pockets of areas all over town that you can flip in. You know, a lot of guys just have a little area that they know, and that's their neighborhood or their couple neighborhoods, but I go all over town. So it kind of opens up a little bit more for me, you know, that way.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I actually give advice. You know, if you have the luxury of being an appraiser or being an agent and you're all over town, then certainly you can invest all over town. But I think one of the most important things is, if you're getting started and you're not living here, is focusing on one area and becoming an expert in that area first.
Yeah.
Most people don't have the luxury of becoming an expert in all of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And when you're starting, the other thing I think that's important you said is, you know, when you got back kind of starting, is you started small. I mean, you started with one, it sounds like a quarter, and then you started to ramp it up once you started to get some momentum. And there's no shame in starting small and kind of getting your feet wet, making sure that, you know, that you're headed in the right direction and that you're building, you know, a real business around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, because I guess we were doing so much and had so much going on before. And then when the bottom fell out, you know, like I say, I learned that I didn't want to. So if I, you know, was doing one or two, I knew that, hey, even worst case scenario, if something goes wrong with that one that I'm doing, I'm fine. You know, I mean, there is no issues. So, and even now, if I'm doing 10 a year, I've got enough investors where it's spread apart, you know, that I'm still not going to get hit hard enough to where it's going to put me under. I mean, it's not going to happen, you know? So, yeah, but I agree. Starting out slow, and that's the same thing because I've taught classes here in town and spoken at some of the RIA groups, and I tell people, just stay in an area that you know, become an expert in that area, because most people aren't like myself or realtors that go all over the place. You know, that's not so get in an area and learn it really well, and then go from there. Yeah.
So Bruce, talk a little bit about how you find deals. So you're a busy guy, right? You're in the appraisal business. How do you find deals? Is it maybe something, I mean, because people who listen to this podcast are interested in Birmingham real estate, whether it's long-term hold for rentals or wholesaling, flipping. So talk a little bit about how you find deals.
Yeah. I've made a lot of built a lot of relationships. All right. But my main ways are wholesalers. Probably I still buy stuff from wholesalers. However, it's changed a little bit from when you guys were doing it, and there's a lot more people that
There's a ton of
say
people in it.
wholesalers, and where you guys used to purchase a property, everybody just now puts it under contract. Well, anybody can do that, and so it's a lot harder. You got to sift through those wholesalers. But I've got a few that I know pretty well, and they will call me if they see a house that thinks it fits what I need, So developing those relationships with wholesalers. I still get a lot from realtors. Now, when you're doing flips, one of the things that I do is if a realtor brings me an off-market deal, or even if it's on market, it just happens, but that's kind of rare. But a lot of times they'll have a client that has a house that's just totally in disrepair. They don't want to list it because it's going to be a hassle to put on the market. So they bring it to me and I buy it. Once I fix it up, I give it to the realtor to sell. So that's just an incentive for them to bring it to me. So that's probably wholesalers, and that are my two main ways. Now, I bought off the auction sites. I bought a couple, if you have time, I just don't have time to sit and watch all the auctions and keep that going. But auction sites, I bought a couple from, and really still MLS. I had a friend that they had a lot more time than I did. And I said, well, one way I used to buy was stuff that had been on the market for, 300 days, or, you pick a number, you say, okay, something that's been on the market forever.
I want to look at every house in this certain area that's been on the market over X amount of days.
Exactly. Because it might be, 1 in 10, but you could go out there and make offers or take a look at 10 of them, maybe 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 is you've hit them at the right time where they're just done. They've had it on the market for so long and they're ready to move on. And so I like to say, it takes a little bit of time, but it's free. I mean, it doesn't cost you any money, but just costs you that time to do the research. And that's worked for me in the past, so those are kind of the main ways. So.
How many houses would you say you look at to buy one?
Now, fortunately, I can do a lot of the looking online where I used to have to go out a lot more, but I still have to go out, but it could be, 15, 20, sometimes, but it's weird because you'll sit there and go along and you look at 20 houses, 25 houses, you don't find anything. And then all of a sudden in 1 week, 2 pop up that are really good and you buy 2, and
right.
So, but it's probably at least 15 or 20.
And where are you getting your money now? Do you have bank lines of credit? Are you, I know you're utilizing some investor relationships.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Because I didn't have a line of credit or didn't have credit scores or anything, to begin with. So I had actually a couple friends that had money, and that's how I started back this second time around. And so we just did some JV deals, joint venture deals. And that's been probably my main way. And then from one person leads to another, and say, hey, so-and-so's got, some money and they're looking for somewhere to put it. And it's been really fairly easy for me to get money. Honestly, I know it's, but I've got a fair amount of experience. So people are pretty comfortable doing a joint venture deal with me because I do have that experience. Plus, the house is going to be titled in their name. So it's not like if they put a couple $100,000 out there, they're not going to lose 200,000. They still have an asset, Right. So joint ventures but now I also have a line of credit, so I do smaller stuff, with my own line, or I may do some hard money to purchase and then use my money to renovation. So I've got about 3 or 4 different ways that, I've got a couple banks that will loan. Some of the smaller banks will talk to you about loaning for flips, but it's a little bit more time consuming, and it's really just like, I mean, if you have to move in a hurry, it's kind of hard. But I've got one bank here that if I have 30 to 45 days, they'll do it. But you do have to pay closing costs. You got to do all that. But the rate's a lot better than hard money, you know. So it's kind of a wash. But there's a lot of different ways.
So tell us how you structure those JV deals, because I would think, especially for people who are kind of just getting into the business, they hear joint venture. What makes sense for them to partner with, and what makes sense for an investor to say, yeah, this is worth my money?
Yeah. You know, the way mine are structured, and hey, it's all negotiable, you know, it's all negotiable. But the way I do mine is I have no money in when I do a joint venture. There's no money on my side in. So my investor has everything. They purchase it, pay for renovation costs, pay all the holding costs, pay everything. But they don't do anything else. I mean, I have one investor that half the time he doesn't even see the houses. He doesn't even know where they are. You know, he could care less. He just wants the return. But I do everything. I'll find the property, run the renovation, work with the realtors, get it sold and everything.
You run all the numbers by them as well too, right?
Exactly.
So you put up a pro forma and say, hey, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll come to them, and they, you know, my guys know me so well. I'll come and say, hey, I'll email and say, this is a house I found. This is what I think it's going to renovate. This is what it's going to sell for. And honestly, within 10 minutes, I usually get, yeah, go for it. You know, I mean, it's like, but I mean, it's, you know, been pretty easy. But then what we do is a 50-50 split. So when it's all said and done, we sell that property, they get paid back every dime that they put into it. And then we look at the profit and we split it 50-50. Now, you know, it's good for them because I'm able to turn that around, and they make, you know, it's all going to vary. Every house is different, but I don't think, you know, with the exception of one or two, they haven't made 10 or 12% on their money, and sometimes 30% on their money. I mean, you know, so it's a pretty good rate of return that they're getting. And for me, you know, it's just my time putting in it. And the more efficient I can be with having crews and having done, I don't put as much time into it as I used to. So it's a pretty good return for me too, you know. So
I think this is very similar to how I got started. I always tell the story that I had a lot of time and no money, and I met some people that had a lot of money and no time. And there are people out there like that, whether they're friends and family that would love to invest alongside of you, but don't have the time to go do the diligence.
Right.
So what a great opportunity for people that are listening to this to get started. If you don't have money, that's not an excuse not to get started.
I agree. And I think that's probably a big excuse people use, or a fear that they have. Like, oh, I can't, I don't have the money. Nobody would ever loan me money. I'm just getting started out.
Yeah.
I mean, all you have to do is find somebody who's really interested in real estate. And if you can, you know, if you can be patient and be diligent, kind of what you've been talking about, Bruce, in finding a good deal, there is money for those deals, I think, all over the place.
I agree. That's what, you know, when we started with my old partner, David Thomas, I remember the first thing he said to me, he goes, money's not going to be a problem. We were putting this whole thing together, and I'm like, money's not going to be a problem. I'm like, money's always a problem. Like, but he was so right. I mean, money is really the least problem, because if you can find a deal and you can show somebody with money that they can make a good return, they're going to be, I mean, there are a lot of people that are open to that, because there is a lot of money out there, you know, and that's what part of the thing when I'm teaching class, I tell people, just, you've got to be pretty knowledgeable though. I mean, because somebody's got a lot of money, they've got a lot of money for a reason. They've been smart with it, you know, and so you can't come to them and not know your numbers. You can't come to them and not know, you gotta know, hey, this is what I can get it for. I've got all the estimates for renovation. I've got a contract that's giving me these prices. Hey, and this is what the realtor, we've got all these comps. I show them comps, you know, if you want, and this is what we can sell it for, so that they can have a confidence in the project too. You know, once you get that, you'd be surprised that people come forward. Yeah.
That's some great advice. When I'm out pitching, you know, for investors too, investors just want the deal. They want it to be buttoned up. They don't want any, you know, I used to pitch it with, well, you know, tell me what you would be willing to do, and all they want to know is it to be a yes or no. So you need to put together the deal and then take it to the investor. And especially when somebody has a track record like you, that then it becomes the 10-minute
Yeah.
email back, yes. But
Yeah.
you need to, advice is make sure it's all buttoned up and put together,
Yeah.
and make it a yes or no.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So in Birmingham, I mean, I know you're doing flips. I know that you're doing flips in a lot of A class neighborhoods, B class neighborhoods. Think about where are you also looking at rentals? Because I know that this is something that's, in your future, you're planning on doing that. Tell us how you look at rentals, Bruce.
Yeah, one of the things, I had a friend a few years ago. She was showing me some of the stuff she was buying when, oh man, I guess it's been about 6 years ago. So she was picking up some foreclosures after all the mess, but she was picking up a lot of garden homes down to the south. These houses were, maybe 5, 10 years old. They weren't very old. And she was picking these things up in foreclosure for like $75,000, $80,000. And then she would put her money in it and, she'd have, great cash flowing properties. But I like the idea of having, and these are down in areas like, Pelham, Alabaster, Calera, all down to the south where they had a lot of new developments, but they got hit hard with foreclosures. I like the idea of having some newer houses in a little bit better area. I think, Spencer, that townhouse I just found in Alabaster, which would have been a great rental. I was going to do it for rental, but somebody came along and offered me money for it, and I think I'm going to sell it. But anyhow, but that's a great area, though. I like that, and I don't count on appreciation. All right, I never would count on appreciation when I was doing rentals, but I like being in an area where there's a good chance that you are going to see some appreciation, because too many times I see people, and I've done so many appraisals for investors that were in C or D areas that paid good money for them, but then the house gets trashed, and that house that was good money at 75,000 gets trashed and it's 25,000, because it's in a neighborhood that when they're trashed, they're worth flow, but if you go into a better neighborhood, even if it gets trashed, it's never going to get hit that hard. It's going to get hit, but not that hard. So that's kind of the areas, now, but I will look like out in Hueytown, it's kind of a C probably area. Yeah. And, there's some pockets out in Hueyton. I would have rentals all day long, and some out in Forestdale. I looked at one the other day out there. I thought about, as far as a rental, and those are probably B to C areas.
Yeah, Pleasant Grove.
Pleasant Grove is a great area. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some areas that we've heard from other guests talking about places they would buy rentals. They're just good areas. Still a lot of home ownership.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested in your coaching business. So you're launching this coaching business. And what are you going to be teaching the people that are coming to work with you?
Well, the first off, it's flipandbruce.com. It's just starting out as a membership website. And so what we're doing is every week I'm doing a coaching call with anybody that wants to get on there, just taking a different topic every week. And we go through that. And then I open up for questions. And I open it up for questions because some of these people have projects going on and they want to know, something. So I just open it up to anything. And as long as, I'm there and answering questions, people can stay or go or whatever. So that's kind of one of the main things. And then I've got, examples and case studies of different properties that I've done, before and after pictures, all the numbers, what the renovations costs were, what the profits were, everything. So people can kind of really see exactly how a flip works and how the numbers that have worked for me, Now, also I'm doing is going out to houses that I own now and doing videos, update videos. So we're like starting files on the website to show people they can sit down, and once we have, a number of houses, they can pick a house and maybe watch 10 videos of that house from beginning to end. So they can really kind of show them the process and things we run into, because it's all, none of it's scripted. It's just, hey, this is what happened this week, and I just let people know. So that's kind of the main part. And then we've got a course that we're putting together. I've got the book that I just wrote, but we haven't firmed it up yet, but the premise is going to be like a group coaching type thing where I'll take maybe 10, 15 people and go through this course. I've got like about 18 modules, and every week we'll go through about 3 modules and do it for like 6 weeks, but it'll be like one-to-one I'll be there every week with them and showing them going through it. And then take at the end of the course, they get like a 30-minute to an hour consultation with me if they've got any projects going on, that type of thing. So that's kind of in the works. We're all just getting it off the ground right now, but that's going to be kind of the main coaching part. But in general, it's a membership site just to get a lot of people involved and, just showing them what we do.
Can you give us some examples of some things that new investors that are just getting into flipping ask? And then your answer to those?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things because, it's like what Spencer, how do you find deals? Where do you find, because people struggle with, because it's difficult to find deals. I mean, you've got to put some effort into it, but there are a lot of ways that are free or relatively free, that I can show people on MLS. I just don't have the time to really work on the MLS and go search, but they are there. Auction sites are another good way. So people, I'll show them, hey, pick an auction site and just keep watching it, kind of learn how that site works to watch for properties. Money is always a thing. We have a whole couple series of just how to approach people. And I show people, what to put down when we talked about coming to somebody. You don't come to somebody with just, a vague thing. Hey, I got a house and you can make a lot of money. You got to have numbers. You got to have it all laid out, So I show people that, that's kind of all the beginning. But then there is we get into the renovation process. What do I think is important to do at renovating? What are some of the things that maybe are little extras, depending on the neighborhood, you want to do these extras or not, trying to keep your costs in line. There's just a ton of stuff to go over that we go over. So
that's very exciting. It sounds like I can't wait to read the book too. Be excited to get
it's on Amazon. Get it now.
It's Amazon right now. It won't be this, but right now we got a 99-cent deal going on. You can download it off of Amazon. And as a matter of fact, Spencer, you saw that it was #1 in the category that we picked
that's right.
last night. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But I've gotten some real good feedback so far. Yeah, I can get that. And then one thing about on the website, and I hadn't even talked about, but this house that we're doing out in Irondale right now, we bought it and I'm doing weekly updates on it. And what we're going to do is I'm calling it the JV giveaway house. So it's a joint venture. What I'm going to do is pick a member at the beginning of December. We're going to pick one member and I'm going to split the profit with that member. So I'm taking it. So no matter, what, if I make $20,000, I'm going to cut somebody a check for $10,000. So
I'm joining now.
That's why I've had a couple of people just join and say, I don't care. I'm going to get in on the drawing. But I thought it's fun but it keeps people's attention. And now they're always wanting to hear about the JV house, how it's going, when it's going to be done and all that. So I'm having fun.
It's awesome.
Bruce, what do you like about Birmingham? If, for somebody that doesn't live here, kind of give your kind of insider view of Birmingham, especially from a guy that drives around all day.
Yeah, I like Birmingham a lot. And probably one of the big things is, when we were going big back in the 2000s and my partner, David, he kept wanting to go to Florida. Florida was just the hot market. Everybody was going down to Florida to flip houses.
Flipping condos.
That would have been bad.
Exactly. And I kept telling him, I'm like, David, no, it's just, if we go in at the wrong time, one condo, we've lost everything. It's like, no, and so Birmingham is just not this stuff. Birmingham is just, which I like so much better. As far as if something gets hit here, yeah, it gets hit, but it's just not to the extremes, And Birmingham's
just for Bruce, let me stop you 1 second. Just for context, Bruce was saying not the sharp up and downs. He was doing it with his hands for those that aren't
podcast
watching.
Listeners.
He was saying, hey, the highs aren't as high, but the lows aren't as low. It's a little more of a steady Eddie market.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I forgot that it's not all video. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. Because things were going up, like my brother in San Diego, his value of his condo kept going up like 25% a year, something absurd, and I kept telling him, and he kept refinancing. I'm like, don't do this, because it can't keep like that, Yeah. In Birmingham, you don't have that, And then Birmingham is just much more affordable. You can go get, a decent house out in, Hueytown, we bought some neat stuff for $125,000. They're really nice houses, So anyhow, I like Birmingham a lot. Yeah.
So what are your, and that's one of the things we were literally just talking to a guy who was talking, he was telling us what he loves about Birmingham, mentions the same type of stuff. It's the healthcare, it's the varied, education here, so that when an economy gets hit, it doesn't get hit as hard. So there's some good steady professions here.
Yeah, that's true. And diversity, there's a lot of diversity because when I lived in Colorado was back in the early 80s was totally dependent on the oil industry. Colorado and Denver in particular, oil was like, 50% of the job market, and everything when the bottom fell out in oil. When I left Denver, it was, I think, a 30% vacancy rate in about 1985 in Denver.
Wow.
I bought a condo in 83 in Denver for $72,000. In 85, when I left, it was worth $38,000. And this was in a nice neighborhood, So,
it's changed a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. We have an office there, and it is.
It's great now. But back then, see, they were building it about 10 or 12% a year because the population was growing about 10 or 12. But then all of a sudden they kept building, and then the population just stopped, growing, and it was a nightmare for a few years.
So what does the future hold, Bruce? What do you where do you see yourself over the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, I hate to be I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I mean, I just think we're going to see a turn here. I would say in the next 6-9 months. I just think it's inevitable. I mean, right now the government's got everything propped up, which I think they have to do, but that's got to end at some point. And I do a lot of my appraisal work is for some foreclosure attorneys, and that work is about doubled in the last month. And I hate to be, but I really think that there's just going to be some stuff coming around the corner, and I hate it, and I hope I'm wrong. I wish I'm wrong, but I kind of don't think. But I'm going to be prepared to be buying some more foreclosures and stuff. I mean, I just think there's going to be more opportunities. So.
And that was my follow-up question. Yeah. You think that that's just going to generate more opportunities for savvy investors?
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of opportunities, So I'm still buying now. I'm not stopping buying, but I'm just trying to be cautious, and not pay too much, just because if things start to turn, I just don't want to get stuck. And that's the other good thing about Birmingham. It's usually doesn't take that much of a dive. I mean, if I buy something, right, I still have 2, 3 months, 4 months, I can sell it, and I'm not going to, take a bath usually. So, but I do think come springtime, I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities. Yeah.
I used to always look at Atlanta and think that Atlanta was probably 3 or 4 months ahead of Birmingham, and say, hey, I can look at the temperature of Atlanta, and if it starts to tank, then we're not going to be far behind, but I still had some time.
Yeah. We used to do the same thing. That's exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Bruce, this has been awesome.
Good deal.
Bruce, man, thank you so much. This was incredibly insightful. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you guys. I enjoyed it.
And so if people want to get in touch with you, then they can reach you at, do you want them to reach out to Flippin' Bruce?
Yeah, probably do Bruce at flippinbruce.com.
Okay.
That would be
Does flipping have a G in it, or just flippin'?
Just flippin'.
Yeah. Okay. Flippinbruce.com.
Flippinbruce.com.
Yeah, I got that domain name about 5 years ago. It came to me and I thought, I like that. And then I didn't do anything for about 3 years. And I'm like, okay, I got it though.
I've got a few of those too.
Yeah.
And also, if you're listening, go out and make sure you get Bruce's book, First Flip, if you're interested in learning how to flip. But there's a lot of good information in there. So
thank you.
Well, good deal, Bruce.
For 99 cents. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Hurry. Limited time only.
Yeah, right. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, we'll see you.